Ryan, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
The last time you were here, we talked a lot about Paxam. We talked a lot about your studio, and we talked a lot about the freedom that you had to jam with your friends, to make music with your friends in a kind of a lower pressure environment. Mm-hmm. And now I know a lot of this record was made not at Paxam, but in New York, and you were getting away from LA for a lot of different reasons. And one was that you were going through a very public divorce. But I want to talk about the change in recording. You recorded Prisoner in New York. How difficult was that change for you?
I mean, it wasn't at all. In fact, it was pretty easy because I had lived previously for 5 years a block from that studio. So that was the studio actually also where I met Charlie. He used to engineer there. Charlie, who engineers all the records at Paxam, plays bass in my band, mixes all the records. He's sort of, Paxam is kind of like the Ghostbusters sort of firehouse, but it's just basically only Charlie and I. Or like that's kind of how it works. So he and I met at Electric Lady sometime, I want to say 2006, maybe 2007, something like that. And then he engineered Easy Tiger just because he was a house engineer there. So going back to Electric Lady is, in a lot of ways, going back to what I knew before I had my own studio. And liberating in some aspects also.
But did it feel like a return to your older self? Because I know when we talked about Paxam, it felt like a rebirth in so many ways when you had that studio, when you were able to spend all night jamming, and you had. Last time I spoke to you, there was a real sense of freedom that came from there. So when you were going into these older studios, did it feel like an older version of yourself?
No, I mean it was kind of like returning to where I was before I was married.
Is that a welcome return?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, Lee and everybody there were super stoked to have me back. Lee's the guy that owns and runs that studio, and the energy for me being there was really light and inspiring, and it kept me kind of like I felt lucid there. Also I could go there in between tours as opposed to going back to California where I was sort of setting up a new home. I could just go to New York and work while my home was being set up, and it just made sense. It really did, and it kept things light.
Did it? Because I know, like you said, you've recorded in New York before, and I was actually at the Live at Carnegie Hall show you did there. Well, one of them I was there. And,
oh wow!
And I know you spoke that night, so I still think I can see myself in the cover. Like I think I can, or I lie to impress people, and
right
I go, yeah, there I am. That's me in the balcony.
You just gotta lighten you gotta lighten it up or something in your phone.
I'll get you to send me like an Instagram copy.
Right.
Of it. Yeah. I can use the 5th filter. Did it influence the songs at all being back in that city?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think if anything, the responsibility of being at Paxam it isn't tremendous, and things are set up and it feels good. But for me, I wanted to just record and play with one of my best friends, Johnny, on drums, and just have it be vocals, guitar, and drums to be the basic tracks of everything I did, which is usually the case in any of my recordings. But I knew specifically I wanted to do it with him, and New York made more sense to be flying in and out of for the tour as I was writing.
Yeah.
And the band weren't really available to do stuff in the 2 weeks we would have in between tour times, so I had to kind of take it upon myself to do it, and it felt right to do it.
But what did that do to the music?
Well, I mean, that's the nature of how all my recordings are. It's just drums and vocal and guitar as a basic track. But so doing it at Electric Lady, which is a much bigger room with stuff set up around, like for me to then run to go play bass right after I've written the song, it's essentially the same thing I do no matter where I'm at. Mm-hmm. It's just that I did it in a place that I had previously done that at, and done it with a full staff at a studio that's kind of set up to cater to a person that's in that environment.
You did 80. You wrote 80 songs for this and whittled it down to 12.
No, there are 70 recordings or more.
70.
Well, 70 is what we've clocked, or what my administrators and my business people have in the vault that they know exists. But there's more. But there's 70 mixed actual tracks.
Are you always this prolific when you make a record? Do you always have this many tracks going into a record?
I usually have many. I didn't when I was married. Weirdly,
why is that?
I usually had as many. I don't know. I don't really know. I've thought about that some. Maybe I was busy just being relaxed, or there's also there was a different vibe for me then. Before I used to write a lot, and it was what I did, and it's what I turned to, and it was my sort of that's my place, being creative. And then I guess I took a break or went to a different realm and existence, and then eventually I felt that need, that call to do more, and I just responded to it.
Is that call, like you said, you were busy being relaxed? Is that call?
That was a nice way of saying that I was not able to do what I wanted to do maybe all the time.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, like, does songwriting have to come, if you write at that frequency, does it have to come from a place of conflict?
No, but look, I'm a songwriter and I like to make recordings, and if you're in a relationship where someone's going to make you feel guilty for doing that, for spending that kind of time, then you're going to eventually stop, whether it be an implied pressure or not. And I'm not saying that happened in my marriage, but even if it's an implied thing that, like, you're spending too much time doing this thing you love or whatever it is, you will compromise, or you will change how you live in order to facilitate that. I learned valuable lessons about my life before I was married, while I was married, and after. And what the greatest thing I took from it is that it isn't, oh man, I have to go on this prisoner tour. I'm going to be gone for like 8 months. It's, I get to go on this prisoner tour. I get to play for 8 months.
And didn't always feel like that?
It always did for me. I just don't have to explain it to anybody anymore.
Right. You get to do it. But that's, man, but it's not often, man. You've been playing music for a very, very long time, and to a lot of people, it isn't, I get to do this anymore. It isn't, I get to play Massey Hall. It's, well, I got to go out and I got to play
That's
Massey Hall.
That's not true.
tonight.
Every time it's I get to do it.
No, for you, I mean, that's remarkable for you. I mean, there's artists who have been playing music as long as you have who don't have that same excitement.
Well, I mean, gratitude is the attitude.
Well, yeah, but gratitude's a hard. I know, but gratitude's a hard thing to have. I mean, I'm just trying to, in this current.
Is it? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's much easier to feel toxic about stuff. I mean, in reality, I'm not always physically well, even on tour.
Yeah.
But I have to find a way to get myself into position so I could do what I want to do and play guitar and make noise and feel good. And everybody has their stuff to overcome. And I think it's. I mean, you guys are up here in Canada and relatively, at least I hope that you are far enough away from the shitstorm that is the United States to realize that, like, I'm from this country that's like built on like animal jungle law, where it's built on adversity, and it's built on the idea that like you're going to struggle from the moment you're born until you die, and even just the act of dying means that you owe money to somebody,
And that's liberty.
to build bombs. Yeah, and it's so that as like a. This isn't a political statement. This is an artistic statement I'm making. But that feeling as a human that makes art, as a human being, is my decision to like take my life and try to turn them into songs and direct them at the personal and not the political, or direct them towards the small moments, not big moments. All those choices and all those decisions. That I'm making to do that, they have all been carefully weighed against the alternative.
And that alternative, we spend a lot of time in this show talking about how in this current political climate, because we're here in Canada, we do see it, and I read the paper, and I read the internet, and the thing I feel like we're pushing against, when you said I find gratitude not to be that hard, I find that remarkable because I find that we're constantly pushing against cynicism. And that times like these can make us cynical, but it doesn't seem to have made you cynical.
I mean, I had this idea since I was young that there were really evil people in the world, that there were people who were constantly fighting against a dark thing inside them, or they maybe were not smart enough to actually like formulate their own opinion or their own idea about who they were.
Yeah.
Maybe those people are more dangerous than just the actual people who are evil. It's the people who don't really know who they are, so they can carry out these horrible things. And I mean, I saw it all the way down to the microcosm of like the skateboarding world, or the mail order comic book world where you like send off your $10 and like you don't get your 20-issue run of Spider-Man because the guy is melting down or says he sent it but didn't. I mean, you could break all this stuff down and see all these things happening on a smaller scale. I'm sure like every high school out there has the same sort of construct that happens on a political on the world stage, you know, of that there are just some people who are I mean, there's really no other way to say it. Like there are people that you're going to meet in life and they're just assholes, and sometimes that's the motivation that people actually have to then become someone that wants to control or tell other people what to do. Think about it. I mean, like most people don't go like, okay, I'm this like raging, so I'm just gonna go sit in a corner and be by myself and like, you know, and write some haikus. Like that's not the personality of like a raging. Like they're probably the person that's like in high school. They're like, I want to become class president.
Yeah.
There's like a fire in that kind of a person, and there's like a desire to kind of like shape or mold or oppress. I mean,
well, that's the banality of evil. Like the Hannah Arendt, she wrote that book after the Nuremberg trials, and she said that the greatest evil that we have is our complicity, or how complicit we are with actual evil. That there are a few evil figures.
Did you read that book, The End, about that, about German society and how it could have ever been, how they all could have fallen into in line with public opinion in that way? It's Anton someone.
No, I didn't read it. I read that one about I guess it's a similar book maybe, just about how. But what do you take from that? Like you said, there are these, and they're typically not writing. I like that they're not writing haikus. They're the ones who are running for class president. They're the ones who are causing the ruckus. What does it say about the rest of us who vote for him?
I don't know. See, that's the interesting thing is I don't want to say anything for anybody.
Yeah.
I want to watch somebody like make tea in the morning and admire them and like watch their hands and the way that they pour the hot water.
Why?
And like say to myself, like, look at the way the light maybe like just passes by a woman's wrist, or or listen to the way that like maybe wind sounds outside of a window hitting wind chimes that belong to somebody that passed away, and think about that moment to myself, because it does not mean that I am better. I think that I don't want to I don't want to participate in grand moves. I don't want to participate in what humans should be doing, because I just don't see anybody that way. Mm-hmm. I just look at these people. I look at myself too, and I think, you're not from here. You're not staying here. You're visiting. Everyone that goes like, oh, it's so sad that Bob passed away. It was such, it's what a shame. People all sitting together talking about it, and go like, what are you talking about? You're going to die. Like probably in like 30 years max. I mean, but now that like this clown monster man is president of the United States, like maybe relatively sooner than you thought. But like the point is I don't know. Like I just have these opportunities. Maybe it's from being from a small town or something, where I think these little tiny moments are so beautiful. Little moments, watching somebody watch somebody else laugh at something that someone else is doing, and watching the chain of looks. Mm-hmm. Those things kill me. I love them. And I always think like to myself how charmed I am that I can catch that, you know? And it makes me want in return to capture it in a song, or write something down, or even to just study that moment, because I just feel grateful that I get to see that stuff, you know. Cause
that's quite a perspective, man. That really is.
Well, I mean, it's that simple. I mean, I just there's just a little bit of self-awareness that can go into feeling grateful for the opportunity to even play guitar. Yeah. I mean, I worked at this bread baking factory in Raleigh, North Carolina.
When you were a kid?
After I had run away from home, more or less, and was just trying to make enough money to live in this one room sort of one-room tenement building in Raleigh, and I had to ride my 10-speed all the way across Raleigh to go to this bread baking factory, and frozen bread rolls would come off this assembly line.
Yeah.
And I had to put them on these trays and these big racks and then move them across this big, horrible warehouse into these big machines that would then activate the yeast, called poofing machines.
Yeah.
And I remember they wouldn't let me listen to my headphones because they didn't believe that I could do the job and not hear if there was like damage on the belt or something. Because this guy would be at the top of the machine feeding the machine these big things of unneeded dough, which it would then get converted and somehow quickly frozen. It was insane. So I would make up songs in my head.
Just to pass the time.
Yeah, or I'd think of my favorite songs. I would think of songs or songs I hated, and I would just try to go from the beginning to the end of the song in my mind, and I'd go like, okay, so the song starts with a drum roll. I think it starts with a drum roll. And I would just sort of play the song out in my head. And I remember I think I started to like really I started having this I started to have the ability to retain music in a different way than I had before. The longer I worked on this assembly line, where I could then just listen to radio at night and then like recall what I was listening to.
That's crazy.
If you stand 8 to 10 hours in a horribly lit room with like frozen like hot dog shaped bread coming at you on an assembly line that you're putting onto trays, you will do something.
Yeah.
Your mind will go somewhere.
Yeah. It's good it went there.
Yeah. I always tried to think about that time when I'm having a bad time doing what I'm doing, because it wasn't a terrible time. It was pretty bad. But I made something out of that time too, and to go fast forward and say like, wow, this is my life now. This is what I'm doing now. I'm making records and doing this. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I don't want to keep you forever because I know you have to do sound check, and listen, I appreciate you coming in. And you mentioned earlier that
quotations forever.
Well, when you're feeling bad, you mentioned earlier that
yes, I'm having a terrible Meniere's day. Yeah.
And I hope you don't mind me saying this. On Instagram the other day, you put up a post and you were in Philadelphia, and you said, "I am having a really bad Meniere's, I guess, night. I'm having double vision. I'm dizzy. I can't really see very well. I feel sick. But this crowd really gave me what I needed to do this show. And thank you, Philly."
Yeah.
So in terms of gratitude, and I want to talk about the power that comes with gratitude. What power do these audiences give you when you're having these bad Meniere's days? This is Meniere's disease, by the way. This is an illness that Ryan suffers from.
It's really more about their power to overlook questionable solos.
Oh, come on. But what does that do to you? What does that do to you?
Although I have questionable solos when I'm feeling great. I don't know. I mean, I just know I don't want to fall over. I know I want to feel what I want to feel my feelings. I want to play as hard as I can. I'm not in Slayer. I'm in like emotional Slayer. So it's like, sometimes after like 2 hours of my own show, I'm like, I feel like I just watched the Thornbirds like miniseries, or
I'm still stuck on emotional Slayer.
No, it's true. I feel like I've watched like 8 episodes of like late 80s Oprah like in a row or something. I'm just like emotionally
like
worn
Donahue
out. Yeah, totally. But yeah, it's like I want to feel all my feelings and play as much as I can and feel inspired. There's this magic thing that happens where sometimes I'm re-energized by losing myself and into this one space of the room when I'm playing, which I really like. And it won't be a song. Sometimes it'll be like an entire show or an entire section of the show where things just move as one. The audience, the music, everything moves as one, and that's really fascinating. It's a really fascinating place to be. I suspect that the thrill of that feeling is enough. Also, I mean, it's writing songs and being who I am is as close to being a journalist or writer with like a daily column in a newspaper as I could get, because I'm just the way that I am. My column wouldn't make any sense. It would be too erratic for a paper.
Yeah.
And it's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. So I guess in some way this is like my version of that, playing guitar, writing songs.
Well, it's been really nice to talk to you. I don't want to keep you any longer. You know, I had some questions for you about the record. I had some questions for you about maybe like some growth over the time of the record. But I'm really enjoying talking to you about gratitude.
The
too.
record is Prisoner, and I wrote it while I was going through the beginning part of a divorce. It's not any different than any other Ryan Adams record, because my records are always heavy. And you could say that about any of my records.
Yeah.
You could pick any one of my records and you wouldn't say like, oh, it's not his science fiction album about traveling into like an interdimensional portal. However, with the right kind of marijuana, maybe you could do that. But like, I think that like all my records, it's about the tough stuff. It's maybe I pick on the harder moments in a day, thinking about what it means to be a person with feelings. I don't believe in cliche. I think that things are only cliche until you take them back and you mean them. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if someone thinks that something I do isn't cool or it's being unmindful. I don't like the idea of writing records that come from a perspective of being jaded or looking at worldview in some kind of a horrific way, because this is it. This is your dimension that you're in.
It's the same thing. You were still talking about gratitude. We're still talking about
sort
gratitude.
of, but this is where you're at. We're in this dimension. Everything works for fuel. Everything works for food. Everything is going to expire, and everything came from some place that's not here, and we're just here. So you could look at that and say that's horrific, or you could look at that and say that's beautiful, or you could do both. But for me, I just want to watch the light fall on somebody's hands when they're making tea and go, why does this moment feel so painted perfectly to me? And what do I feel about this? Why does this remind me of G-Mom Papa? Why does this room feel slow? Those things to me, I don't know why, they feel soft and colorful. They feel full. They feel like the important questions for me. And it's funny because, I just was raised this like scrappy punk skate kid that just was like, I don't care when someone told me you can't write Guns N' Roses on one side of your Converse and Sonic Youth in the other. And I was like, really? Because my pen just did it.
Yeah, right.
And I have both those records. They like, one of them didn't get up and leave my record collection. So go f yourself. Mm-hmm. maybe go f yourself. Write that on your Converse. Like, I just am who I am. And the best thing about who I am and what I do is I am that punk kid, but I really am, and probably inarticulate and in a lot of ways, and well, in some ways, and have been a buffoon about it, and really, I think probably really hard-headed about it a lot of times. But it's because that's who I am in my life. I am this post-skater punk, thrash kid that just happened to also, I don't know, like maybe I shouldn't have read that like Eudora Welty book or Auden or whatever it was that like made me start to appreciate slow moments. But in effect, it's kind of the only thing that I feel like is right for me to do, and all the research and the music and the stuff I've listened to kind of back that up, like be who you are. Don't let anybody tell you not to appreciate things the way that you want. It just strangely just didn't come out in a way that sounded like the Dead Kennedys. It's like it's really funny to be 42 and from time to time have this incredible life where I get to defend a career of writing songs about who spilled the milk, and who did what, and how a relationship fell in a certain way, or what caused a problem. That's just who I ended up being. It feels better than a mask.
Ryan Adams, listen, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us today. I really appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you.